continue from your end, because you are responsible for the National Service Authority scandal, where the Fourth Estate did the investigations ahead of the elections and found that there were hundreds and thousands of ghost names. You attempted to make a publication. Then the National Service went to court on your blind side, filed a suit, and then got an injunction against you, so you couldn't publish it. And then, as witty, as wise as you guys are, you outwitted the process. You filed a petition before the special prosecutor, and then on the back of that petition, there was a publication. Then the world got to know that this was the rot alleged that had gone on at the National Service Secretariat. Then subsequently, when the oral team was formed by the president, you then filed a petition again to oral. This is what has now led to the charges that have been filed against the former Deputy Executive Director, Gifty Oware-Mensah, and Osei Esibe Entry, former Director General of the National Service Secretariat. Help us understand what exactly your investigations were and whether now you are happy that a case has been filed.
Thank you, Samson. Let me start by saying that, well, what has happened is a vindication of the work that was done, because you know that right from the beginning, there were a lot of condemnations. We had people going around, media organizations, saying that the work that had been done was basically lazy journalism, desktop journalism. We didn't do anything extraordinary. There was nothing about what had been revealed and all of that. So I think what is happening, even though yes, it's a legal process, we will wait for the outcome. I think it's a vindication that at least what was done has led to the state, taking it further to probe. And I should also say that the team at the Media Foundation for West Africa is grateful to the Attorney General for the acknowledgement that he made publicly about how the work that was done by the Fourth Estate laid the foundation for the subsequent investigations that were done. Essentially, I believe, as the public is aware by now, we did that work, and it took us about 6 months, because the work started sometime in April 2024. And by the time we were done, this was around October. And that was when we then started writing to various people that we needed to talk to, including officials at the National Service Secretariat and now Authority. So we had written to the now, the Director General, his deputies. So that included Madam Gifty Oware and Kweku Ohenidan. We had written to GIPS to try and get records of payment, and that was about an RTI request. They denied us what we had requested, because they said, well, there is some confidentiality clauses between them and National Service Authority. So in the end, we couldn't get the opportunity to talk to these people because they were not willing to speak to us. And it was at that point that we also made it clear to them, well, your non-availability or unwillingness to respond to questions we have wouldn't stop us from publishing. And so we indicated we were going to go ahead. And that was when, they went to court on our blind side. And something we are grateful, for the defense that you continue to put up for us in the courtrooms. So they filed that injunction on our blind side. And as you've narrated, we thought that this was an important story to just allow some flimsy legal processes to get it scuttled or not published. And so we had to, file petitions to the OSP and subsequently to the oral committee. Essentially, our discoveries were that there were thousands of persons who were on the, NSS database. And we had also established the fact that many of these, and again in thousands, were people who had gone through the payroll. In other words, they had been paid. So initially when we started the whole publication, the the backlash was that, oh yes, I mean, they could find their names in the database, but what is important is to find out whether they were paid, because the metric app that is being used would ensure that whoever is on the database who ought not to have been there would not go through the process, even at the regional level or at the district level, let alone getting paid. But we had evidence that many, in fact, thousands of these people had been paid, because the database at the back end would show whether somebody has been paid or the person has not been paid. So you take somebody's name, the person has been paid, then you look at the database in the system and realize that this is a 90-year-old person. So you ask yourself, but how can a 90-year-old person do national service? Then you look at another person who has been paid, and then you realize this person is 13 or 12 years old. So quite clearly, there were a lot of things happening. And Samson, you are a media person. You know, at some point when people feel you are doing genuine work, they would come on board to help you even uncover more. So at some point, we did have persons who are familiar with the national service system that we could contact to verify, and they would tell us, oh, no, if you have discovered this, then this is what is happening. So it was obvious that millions and millions were being paid annually. And again, what exposed them even more was that when they made a presentation to Parliament, the Parliamentary Committee on Education, they had to then present the actual figures of persons that they are paying. And we looked at it and looked at the numbers for the previous years, and it was obvious that we couldn't have had schools that were graduating, thousands and thousands more students just within a year. Because if you look at 1 year and it is 80,000 people who were enrolled for national service, and the following year you have, let's say, 150,000, how come all of a sudden in 1 year we have a difference of about 70,000 additional students eligible for national service? And so, I mean, we were convinced that there were a lot of wrongs that had happened, but eventually we thought that GIPS, the Interbank payment system, also has questions to answer, because and we engaged them. In fact, it was after the engagement that we did a request to ask them to give us the payment data, which they declined. But when we met them, in fact, they assembled their whole management team to brief us about how they engage with the national service payment system. And at that point, their point was that, well, for us, it's garbage in, garbage out. We asked them about this marketplaces system. And they said, well, it is garbage in, garbage out. We don't know who is doing service and who is not doing service. At the end of the month, national service will pass on to us the people that we should pay, and then we just go ahead and pay. But now that we are discovering that sometimes one e-switch card would receive payments for multiple national service people, which shouldn't be the case, why was GIPS allowing that? The other question for me, essentially in terms of strengthening institutions, is while all these things were happening for multiple years, the internal auditor at the NSS, what was he or she doing? I don't think that the person can say, oh, well, I was just there in name and earning my salary. If you are an internal auditor, you are privy to the system, you are part of the system, you can audit the system and understand what is happening. So all that while, what was happening? The other point, Samson, is that the AG talks about 653 million in the context of these two people. But what has been lost to the state in terms of the entire national service thing is over 2 billion. Now, we were told earlier that there are some people who have pleaded, to come under plea bargain, and they will refund monies that perhaps were wrongfully paid to them, or they wrongfully, misappropriated. And so perhaps we are only being told about the monies between these two people and not the entire amount that was lost to the state. So, as I said, it's a vindication. It shows that journalism, when done well, can at least help the state to strengthen institutions, to at least fight corruption and, protect the public purse. People would say, well, it is just the beginning of the trial. Yes, it's true But I don't think anyone would want to stand trial for causing financial loss, charges of stealing, and so on and so forth. Nobody would love that. And so if we have a situation where institutional heads and people responsible for managing our resources will do the right things to avoid at least being prosecuted, it's a way to help save this country. As you and I know, we lose millions, in fact, not millions, actually, billions of cedis to corruption every year. And again, some of the works that we are doing, the previous ones, SML, the ones that are ongoing, even the NLA things that we are fighting on, we've taken up currently, it shows how much the state is losing. And if we were able to save all this, perhaps we wouldn't have a situation where the president would have to travel in and out from time to time, go and have meetings. We talk about foreign direct investments and so on, loan agreements and all. When we have so much resources in our country, the leakage is just too much. And I think the earlier we deal with it, the better for all of us.
Right.